guys, welcome back to my channel. So today is going to be my May wrap-up. I hate filming wrap-up videos, but they are my most viewed videos. I just hate them. Trying to remember what happens in books that I've read and why I rated them the way that I did, it's hard, okay? Even if I document why I rated it a certain way, I still don't really remember the book unless it's a 5-star read. So it's like, it's complicated, you know? When you read like 15 plus books a month or whatever, it's hard to remember those things. And also, I don't write like a script like other YouTubers do and sit down and kind of memorize a script. I just film off the cuff. So whatever comes out of my mouth at the time comes out, and that's what you get. So I read 18 books in the month of May, and now I think 3 of them were graphic novels. We have 1 DNF, so I think I read like 60% of that book. I have a nonfiction that I didn't rate, but we're gonna get into that. I have 1 star read that was a contemporary. I have 1 2-star read that was a horror, and then I have 3-star thrillers and horrors. I have 2 3.5 horror books. I have 3 4-star reads mixed between thriller and horror, and then I have 6 5-star reads, but they 4 of them are basically the same thing. So we're gonna get into that as we go. I'm gonna talk about that at the end. If you follow me on Instagram, you probably know, because you're sick and tired of watching me talk about this thing, and I'm not ever going to stop. So subscribe, I guess, if you're new here. Typically I talk about the books that I've rated the lowest, and then we work our way up to my favorite books of the month. So this video, I'm going to start with my DNF, and that is Black Tide by Casey Jones. This is a horror book that came out in the beginning of May. And it is like a post-apocalyptic book where this man and woman wake up from a one-night stand, and basically there's an apocalypse. So now they are trying to survive together, and basically they're like the only ones left, or some of the only people left. This book is also like a creature feature. There's some creatures happening in this book. And I was excited going into it. I really enjoyed the beginning of it, but it just got to a point where I just, after like the halfway mark, it was just boring to me. I couldn't clearly picture like what was happening in my head with the creatures. Like I just couldn't picture them in my head. Some things didn't make sense to me, and it was just really repetitive. It was just, you know, I feel like apocalyptic books are kind of hit or miss for me, because sometimes it's like, if it's just about like 2 people that are left in the world fighting for survival, it's like, how much can you get out of that book? You know what I'm saying? There's not a whole lot going on. Even though there's crazy stuff going on, it was still just boring to me, and I just really didn't care to finish it. And there's also a dog, trigger warning, there's a dog that is like suffering throughout this entire book, and I just could not stand to read about this like suffering dog who I'm pretty sure kicks the bucket. Spoiler alert. Next, I'm gonna do my nonfiction book, because I don't rate nonfiction. It's really not up to me to like rate someone's personal experiences or nonfiction work. So that was What Doesn't Kill You by Tessa Miller, A Life with Chronic Illness, Lessons from a Body in Revolt. Now, this is basically a book where this author has Crohn's disease, and she dives into her personal experiences with Crohn's, as well as just what it's like to live with a chronic illness. So for me, I have endometriosis. I have a bunch of different conditions, and this was so relatable to me. I don't have Crohn's disease, but everything that she's talking about is so relatable. If you have a chronic illness, I highly recommend. If I were to rate this book, it would be a 5-star read, honestly. She just really goes in depth from everything to, you know, what it's like living with a chronic illness, when you have, you know, partners and friendships when you're chronically ill, healthcare, insurance companies, like literally everything you could possibly deal with and what it's like. And definitely pick this one up if you have a chronic illness. My 1-star book of the month, it would not be a Megan video without a 1-star read during my wrap up, and that is In 5 Years by Rebecca, whatever the fuck her name was. So this book, where basically I picked this up thinking it was going to be like an easy contemporary read. I think it's like contemporary romance, I don't even know, but I picked this up thinking it was going to be about this woman who kind of wakes up and sees her life in 5 years, and then, you know, kind of realizes that you should just accept life for what it is and be positive. I don't know. I thought it was going to be one of those freaking books, and this ended up being one of the worst books I've ever read in my entire life. So basically, this woman just gets engaged to her boyfriend, and she wakes up and she's flashed back 5 years from now, and she is with another man. She's like dating another man, engaged, whatever. And she's like, what the hell? Who's this guy? Like, what is going on? And then she goes back into present day, and she's trying to figure out like who this man is in her future. Now, I can't get into why this book sucks without giving spoilers, so I'm actually going to pop up a little spoiler warning on the screen, and if you don't want to hear spoilers, skip ahead until you no longer see that warning. But basically, the reason I gave this 1 star is because she finds out that this man in her future is her current best friend's new boyfriend. And her best friend ends up being diagnosed with cancer and is terminally ill, is given a certain amount of time to live, and her and the man she's dating start kissing, and she's like, oh, you know, it's okay, like my bestie's probably like okay with it, you know, she's like dying. And then the woman dies, and then they get together and start having sex, and then they're laughing about it, and she's like, it's okay, she would like totally laugh about this, it's like so funny. And then they end up breaking up anyways, and then she starts dating her best friend's oncologist. When she had cancer, that was her doctor, and I'm like, and she's like, life is so funny, isn't it? Literally the worst fucking book I've ever read in my life. Such garbage. Fuck this book. Fuck this fucking book, okay? Okay, anyways, moving on. My 2-star read was Hide by Kirsten White. Is that her name? I don't even know. I'm just guessing. I was so excited to read this book, much like everyone else. I'm pretty sure everyone in the world read this book recently, or they're planning on reading it soon, which I'm sorry if I'm bursting your bubble here, but I did not enjoy this book. So basically, we are following 14 people who are told that they are going to participate in a game of hide and seek in this abandoned, creepy amusement park for $50,000. So whoever's left standing at the end gets $50,000. 2 people are eliminated per day, so they're doing this for 1 week. So I was told that this is like similar to Squid Games, like people are being picked off. I was so excited to read this, and the first 30% hooked me in. I was intrigued, which is where the 2-star rating came from, but it switched POVs so often, so randomly, and most of the characters were so shallow that I couldn't differentiate between who was who. Like, I did not give a fuck about these people, and I just could not differentiate like between any of them. And also, like, the motive and the reasoning behind what was happening was so terrible. I was actually rolling my eyes. Like, nothing about this book was scary. It went in a direction that I was totally not expecting, and it ended up just being a snooze fest. Like, there was so much drama. Like, I had to read about these people's sob story Lifetime movie dramas for 75% of the book until it became horror, and the horror was like, it didn't make sense. The motive didn't make sense. Nothing about this book was enjoyable other than maybe like the first 30%. So unfortunately, the type of horror that this book is too is very hit or miss for me, and I can't say what that is without like spoiling a large percentage of the book. So yeah, it just did not do it for me. I think if you really like disturbing horror books like I do, like horror that genuinely scares you and creeps you out, this is not for you. This is like some Lifetime movie shit. Next, I have 3 3-star reads, and the first one is Succulent Prey by Rath James White, which is an extreme horror book about cannibalism, and I filmed an entire vlog about cannibalism books, which are in this video, so I will leave it linked, and if you want to hear my full thoughts, go check out that vlog. I really went into large amounts of detail about this book. It is wild. It is very, very wild and graphic. Sexually graphic, extreme gore, violence, it's extreme horror. Basically following a guy named Joe that realizes he loves killing and eating people, and he's trying not to be that person anymore because he discovers that he loves a girl. And this is literally the farthest thing from a romance book you could ever possibly imagine. So now he's going on a quest to try to find a cure that will cure him of his cannibalistic needs. This book is so fucked up. Go check out that vlog because I was cracking up. I was not okay. My next 3-star read was The Neighbors by Anya Alborn. So this one, I love Anya Alborn. I've been trying to read like a book of hers a month if I can. But this one is centered around this guy who moves in to his friend's apartment, and basically the neighbors next door seem like they're perfect, and obviously we as the reader know that they are not. They are terrible people. Of course, the main character doesn't realize that, and chaos ensues. It's a short book. I listened to it on audio. It took me a few hours to listen to. It was pretty slow paced, and the motive for what was going on was like, it didn't really make sense. I honestly don't even remember what it was, but I remember at the time I was like, this doesn't even like make sense. It wasn't believable to me. There are a couple like gory scenes and the ending was good, but it was pretty just like slow paced and predictable in my opinion, which is why I gave it 3 stars. But I think if you're looking for just like a quick short like horror novella to read or listen to, I would recommend this one. Other 3-star read was I Know Who You Are by Alice Feeney. Now I love Alice Feeney. The only book I haven't read by her is His and Hers, so I read this one first, and this is probably, from what I hear, her worst book. And it's because of the ending. So I actually really enjoyed this book until the ending, and the ending is what made me give it 3 stars. So in this book, you know, we're following this woman, I think her name's Amy, and she, we find out that her husband went missing, and all signs point to her. So the cops think it was her, like people think that she was the one who did it. And she's kind of an unreliable narrator. It's like the typical Alice Feeney unreliable narrator, flashes between past and present, and we kind of find out who she is, who she really is, and what's going on with her husband. And throughout all of this, you know, you get the chapters of her childhood, and then you get chapters where she has this like stalker, so you're trying to figure out like what is going on with this stalker. Did the stalker do it? Who did it? You know, it was actually really good until the ending, and the ending was so disgusting. It was so unbelievable and disgusting, but like in a bad way, not disgusting in a good way. It was like, I can't believe that that was the twist. Like, I can't believe that she wrote a ending like this, because what? If you know, you know. I actually told a couple people on Instagram, like people have messaged me and they were like, I'm not gonna read it, you can spoil it. And I told them and they were like, what the fuck? Like, this book is disgusting. And it was so unbelievable, like so off the walls crazy that I was like, no, there's just no way. And I feel like my review right now is probably making you want to read this book to find out. And like, by all means, it was an enjoyable book until that part. Just know it was not like disgusting or shocking or crazy in a good way. It was like terrible. Like the ending was so bad. I mean, proceed with caution, but Alice Feeney's a great writer, so I mean, even if you pick this one up, you'll still get some kind of enjoyment out of it, I hope. Then I have two 3.5 star books, the first one being Kin by Keelan Patrick Burke, which is very similar to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It's if Sally, you know, when Sally is on the truck at the end, covered in blood, this would be like what happens after that. Really a good book, really well written, really descriptive language. Basically, this girl escapes this family of cannibals that have killed all her friends and her boyfriend, and she runs to someone for help, and we're following so many different perspectives of like the cannibalistic family, our final girl, the guy that tries to help save her, and we flip back and forth, and it is a good book. It was just very slow paced and character driven, which took away from some of that like heart pumping anxiety feeling that I love to feel reading horror books. So this is in my cannibalistic vlog that I did, so if you want to hear my full thoughts, go check that out. My next 3.5 star was You've Lost a Lot of Blood by Eric LaRocca. So in the beginning of this book, we find out that there are these two men in a relationship and one is dead. So then we kind of follow, it's like, I don't know what you would call it, but it's basically a book based off of this guy. It was like, okay, here's the story of this guy. Here are some voice recordings of what happened. Here are chapters of the novella that he was writing. So you're getting like mixed media almost, I guess, but basically following chapters of this guy Martyr and his boyfriend, and Martyr wants to kill his boyfriend, and we're trying to learn like what the motive is and what's happening there. And then also we are reading chapters of his novella, so it's like a book within a book. And the chapters of the novella were not as interesting as the chapters of him and his boyfriend. So you're trying to figure out like what is going on with this novella, what's the meaning behind it all, how do these two things link? And it had me. The first 50% of this book, I thought this was like a 5-star read. I absolutely fucking loved it. It was so good. And then the novella chapters just started dragging, and I started like caring less and less because it was just so bizarre and weird. It has to do with like a video game simulation thing. This girl's like a video game creator, and she's staying at this house where she works, and that's all I'm gonna say. But it was just very bizarre, and I didn't understand the ending, and I don't know. Overall, I was kind of disappointed by the second half of the book. It didn't do it for me. I was going in between a 3-star and a 4-star, and then I was like, well, I didn't really like the ending, but then I really liked the first half of the book, so I settled with a 3.5. I mean, I still recommend it. It was just lacking the depth and the ending that I was looking for. I really wanted everything to tie up really nicely at the end, and it just left me feeling confused. It felt a little pretentious to me. I don't know. Next, I have 3 4-star reads. The first one being In the Tall Grass by Stephen King and Joe Hill. This one's just like a super short, I think it's like 75 pages. I think you can only get it on audio, so I listened to the audiobook. It took me like 2 hours or something. And you know, this one is the book that the movie on Netflix is based off of. I feel like the book is easier to understand. Like the book is pretty straightforward. The Netflix movie, I feel like they tried to make it this like time thing, like it's like a I forget what it was supposed to be. I don't know. What the hell was that movie? They tried to make it super complicated, but I feel like the book made more sense. It was just like a quick, easy read. I enjoyed it. It was like a creepy atmosphere. Yeah, I think if you're looking for just a super short horror book, this will be just an easy listen, you know, if you're in the car or something. And basically we're just following this couple. They're on a road trip or something, and they hear someone screaming in this tall grass, this tall field of grass on the side of the road. So they pull over and they're like, we should go help them. But once you go in the tall grass, you're basically trapped there and all this craziness ensues. So that's all I can say. It's like 75 pages. I don't want to give anything else away. Next, I have The Collective by Allison Galen. This is a thriller, and it's a revenge thriller. I honestly wasn't sure if I was gonna like this, and I ended up really enjoying it. So we're following this woman who, her daughter is murdered. Her daughter is raped and murdered by this boy. She knows who did it, and she was like, okay, I want this kid dead. Like, I should not be suffering while this kid gets to live his best life basically and roam free. So she ends up coming across this woman. It's this group of women who have this forum on the dark web where they get revenge by killing people who have murdered their children. So they tell her like, okay, this is what you're gonna do, and it's just a chain of people killing each other, and that's all I'm gonna say. I thought this was super interesting, and I did like the way that it ended. There were some things that I found kind of predictable, and I don't know, it wasn't like quite a 5-star for me, but I did really enjoy this one, and I was super intrigued. And it's a quick read too, like the words are super big, and it's only like 300 pages. So it was a quick, easy read. Definitely recommend if you like revenge thrillers. Next, I finally started the Grant County series. This is Blindsided by Karen Slaughter, the first book in the series. And we are following Sarah, who is the town coroner / pediatrician. It's this small town. And then her ex-husband, Jeffrey, who is the chief of police, I think. Chief of police, yeah. And then this woman, Lena, who is a detective. And basically, in the beginning of the book, Sarah finds someone murdered, and I won't get into any details because the opening scene of when the person is murdered and what happens is the goriest part of the book, and it was the most enjoyable for me. What does that say about me as a person? I don't know. But we find out this killer has a religious motive, and he is killing people in a similar fashion and doing weird shit to them. We're just kind of, you know, in the typical Karen Slaughter fashion, we are really getting to know these characters like deeply, you know, to the point where you care about these characters. She's really great at her character development and developing these slow-paced stories that are still interesting and still hold your attention. This did feel a little bit like a mass marketed paperback to me, you know, that you would like pick up somewhere where it's like, okay, it's a small town, someone's murdered, there's a detective, we're trying to solve the murder. Like, that's very much what it is. It's just, it feels like a typical, you know, detective style thriller, but she is such a phenomenal writer, and her characters have so much depth, and I really just overall enjoy her writing style, so I highly recommend this one. I feel like my standards for her are so high after reading Pretty Girls and also False Witness. That's like my second favorite, and now I'm like expecting everything to be a 5-star from her, so I gave this one 4 stars, but I really enjoyed it, and I highly recommend. Finally, the 5-star reads. The first one being The Art of Racing in the Rain by Garth Stein. Now this is a contemporary, it's like a family drama that is told in the perspective of the dog. So it, you know, it is sad, I will say. Everyone's like, I'm not reading that. There's a dog on the cover. There's something bad's gonna happen to the dog. Listen, I get it, okay? I feel like what happens to the family is far worse, so take that with a grain of salt. The dog is so like spiritually enlightened. I don't even know. He has such a great outlook on everything and a great outlook on life, and it just makes you appreciate dogs so much more. I'm like, what have I ever done to deserve dogs? What has anyone ever done to deserve dogs? They're just the most precious thing in the world. So he has some life lessons. It's kind of like you're supposed to learn something from it. There were parts of this that were sad. The very end of it is just, I don't know, it was wrapped up really nicely, and I highly recommend this book. Next is Tender as the Flesh by Augustina Bazterrica. This one is literally, I think, my favorite book I've read so far this year. It is a masterpiece. It is amazing, and it's all in that vlog. So definitely check that out, because I really went into depth about like what I think this book is about, like the theories behind it. And basically we are following this man where a virus hits and all animal meat is poisonous. And so humans start factory farming other humans to breed for consumption, because they are now all cannibals eating human meat, and humans are raised on farms and being treated like animals would be, and it is fucking wild. Lots of trigger warnings, gore, violence, but it is brilliant, and I think what this has to say, and I think the meaning behind it all is brilliant. Definitely check out my vlog, because I talk more about what I think this book is about, but highly, 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 highly recommend. If you love horror, you have to read this book. It is so good. Last but not least, we have the 4 books that are basically the exact same thing that I'm going to talk about, and they are all rereads. Actually, the one is not, but 3 of them are. But I'm just going to talk about them as one unit. So they are Coheed and Cambria's Amory Wars comics and novels, graphic novels, books, whatever you want to call them. So the first one being Year of the Black Rainbow, that is the one that I read for the first time because I could not get my hands on it. It is $300 and I am not spending that on a book because it's out of print. It's a limited edition thing. So basically my favorite band, I'm wearing their shirt right now, Coheed and Cambria. Claudio Sanchez and his wife Chandra, they write comics, and then the band writes music based off of the comics. So it's super, super cool because what takes a band from being, wow, this is a really great band, to, oh my god, I'm obsessed with this band, this is my favorite band in the entire world, I can't shut up about them ever. Like, what takes me from that to that obsession level is the concept. So concept albums are my favorite, and Coheed and Cambria, they're basically progressive rock. Some of their songs are different genres, but overall they are progressive rock, and I just love their concept albums based off of comics, because what happens in the book and what happens in the comics, you can like picture the songs in your head, because some of the lines you'll read are lyrics in their songs, and it just takes it to that whole other level where it's like, oh my god, finally I know what their music is about. But Year of the Black Rainbow is a novel, and I was able to download it on Kindle for like $10 opposed to paying, you know, $300 for the real one. So in this book, it takes place 20 years prior to the graphic novels or the comics, and in this novel, we are following this scientist named Dr. Hohenberger. He's like the super smart scientist. This is all sci-fi, by the way. And then we're also getting the backstory of Wilhelm Ryan, who is the villain in this entire universe. So he has this plot that he is going to basically start an apocalypse and destroy everything and everyone. Wilhelm Ryan goes up to Dr. Hohenberger and he's like, okay, so I am going to need you to create this virus that kills off a whole bunch of people and starts an apocalypse. Very long story short, Dr. Hohenberger creates Coheed and Cambria, a man and a woman. They are like, basically they are husband and wife. They become husband and wife, and they are like robots but also humans, and he creates them to basically fight off evil. So it's very much good versus evil. That's all I'm gonna say about that. So that is the novel that takes place 20 years before the Amory Wars, which are the graphic novels. There are 3 deluxe editions of the comics. We're also waiting on the 4th one. We've been waiting for years for them to finish off this series. They're supposed to be, my freaking light just died. All the time this light dies. Anyways, there's supposed to be No World for Tomorrow, which finishes off the series, but they are still writing it. In this universe, there are basically 78 planets held together in the shape of a triangle called the Keywork, and there's this little blue light that holds all the planets together, and then there's also 7 stars that kind of help hold the planets together. So that is the basis of this world, and Wilhelm Ryan is still on his shit and trying to take over the world, creating this virus. And Coheed and Cambria have been living this normal life. They think that they are just this normal couple. They have children, and basically one day this guy that works with Wilhelm Ryan comes up to him and he says, "Hey, by the way, your kids all have this virus embedded in them that's going to cause the apocalypse. So like, you should kill them with this poison." So that's that. Dun dun dun. So that's where that begins, and it's crazy. It's so good. If you like sci-fi, I would highly recommend. Like, and if you're a fan of Coheed and Cambria's music, I highly, highly, highly recommend. Like, I could not recommend their books and comics enough. Like, they are so well done. They are so good. If you decide to read them, let me know how you feel. If you're a fan of Coheed, definitely let me know so we can be friends, because I feel like a majority of people have no idea what I'm talking about when I post their comics and their music. They think that I'm crazy, and I kind of am, but I'm obsessed. That is it for my wrap up. Hopefully you find something that you like, and definitely let me know like what your favorite book that you've read this month was and what I should read. And until next time, goodbye, I guess. That was a weird outro. Goodbye!